The emergency klaxons of Nexus Prime space station echoed through the metal corridors like the screams of dying stars. In docking bay 7, smoke poured from the wreckage of what had once been a beautiful Kelhari diplomatic vessel. Its silver hull, adorned with flowing script in the ancient Kelhari language, now lay twisted and burning against the station's reinforced walls. Princess Zara crawled from the wreckage on her hands and knees, leaving a trail of luminescent blue blood across the cold floor. Her crystalline wings, once magnificent structures that caught and refracted light like living prisms, hung in shattered pieces from her shoulders. The delicate bioluminescent markings that ran along her pale blue skin flickered weakly, a sign that her life force was fading. The poison was working faster than she had expected. Station security arrived within minutes, their mixed crew of various alien species maintaining a safe distance from the crash site. The chief security officer, a hulking Vorthak with 4 arms and skin like granite, spoke into his communication device with obvious reluctance. Crash confirmed in Bay 7. 1 survivor. It's the Kelhari princess. The response crackled back immediately. Maintain perimeter. Do not engage. Await instructions from the council. Zara tried to stand, her legs shaking with the effort. She had been on her way to peace talks between her people and the Andromedans when the assassins struck. Someone had bribed her personal guards, someone had sabotaged her ship's navigation, and someone had managed to slip poison into her ceremonial drink before departure. Now she was stranded on a neutral station, far from home, with enemies closing in from every direction. Please, she whispered to the security team, her voice carrying the musical tones of her species. I need medical attention. I have been poisoned. The Vorthak officer looked uncomfortable. His species had traded with the Kelhari for centuries, but politics was a dangerous game. Princess, I have orders to maintain distance until the situation is clarified. Within the hour, the situation became very clear indeed. The Kelhari Council's response arrived via official transmission. Ambassador Thane's cold voice filled the security office where Zara had been left to wait on a simple metal chair. The Council of Kelhari regrets to inform Nexus Prime that Princess Zara has been declared a political liability due to her unauthorized departure from approved diplomatic channels. The Empire will not be providing assistance or extraction at this time. Zara felt the words hit her like physical blows. Unauthorized departure. She had been following direct orders from the Council itself. But she understood the real message. Someone on the Council was working with her enemies. Someone wanted her dead, and they were willing to abandon her to achieve it. The station's medical chief, Dr. Vex of the Zephyrian Collective, arrived to examine her injuries. His tall, thin frame moved with the graceful efficiency of his people, and his large, dark eyes showed genuine concern as he ran his scanners over her damaged form. The poison is Kelhari in origin, he reported to the station commander. Specifically designed to target her species' nervous system. She needs immediate treatment with Kelhari medical technology, or she will die within 3 solar cycles. Station Commander Ross, a grizzled human with gray hair and tired eyes, rubbed his temples. Can you treat her here? I can slow the progression, but I cannot cure it. She needs her own people's medicine. And her own people just abandoned her. Ross looked at the princess with a mixture of sympathy and frustration. Your Highness, I'm sorry, but Nexus Prime is a neutral station. We cannot risk political entanglements by harboring you if your own government has withdrawn support. Zara nodded slowly. She had expected this. In the galaxy's political arena, the weak were discarded quickly. I understand, Commander. I will leave your station. Ma'am, with respect, you can't even stand without assistance. Where would you go? That is not your concern. Zara struggled to rise from the chair, her pride still intact even as her body failed her. I will not bring trouble to your station. As news of the princess's abandonment spread through the station, the reactions were swift and predictable. The Kelhari traders who operated shops in the commercial district suddenly found urgent business elsewhere. The Vortak merchants who had bowed to her during previous visits now refused to make eye contact. Even the usually neutral Centaurian diplomats cleared out of the common areas where she might appear. By the second day, Zara had been moved to the medical bay's lowest priority section. Dr. Vex continued to provide basic care, but the pressure from various governments was mounting. The Andromedans, her people's enemies, had requested that the station not interfere in internal Kelhari affairs. The Kelhari trade delegation had made it clear that continued medical treatment for a disavowed royal could affect future trade agreements. Zara lay on the medical cot, staring at the ceiling as her body slowly shut down. The poison was winning, and she was alone in a way that no royal should ever be. She thought of her brother, who might be behind this betrayal, or her aunt, who had always coveted the throne. She thought of the peace talks that would now never happen, and the wars that might follow. On the third day, as she struggled to walk to the station's observation deck for what she believed might be her last glimpse of the stars, her legs finally gave out. She collapsed in the main corridor during the station's busiest hour. Dozens of beings from across the galaxy walked around her fallen form, stepping carefully to avoid the growing pool of blue blood. Some recognized her and quickened their pace. Others simply saw another problem to avoid. Ben Torres had been heading back to his cargo ship after a disappointing meeting with potential clients. The human cargo hauler was not having a good week. His ship, the Steady Fortune, was showing her age in ways that made potential customers nervous. His last 3 jobs had barely covered fuel costs, and his food reserves were running low. At 35, Ben was starting to wonder if he had chosen the wrong life. He stopped when he saw the crowd forming a careful circle around something on the floor. The way people were avoiding the center reminded him of kids avoiding a dead animal on a playground. But when he pushed through to see what was happening, he found something that made his chest tight with anger. A young woman lay unconscious on the cold metal floor, her strange blue skin marked with what looked like circuit patterns that flickered weakly. Her back showed the remains of what might have been wings, now just broken crystal fragments. But what struck Ben most was not her alien appearance, but the fact that she was clearly dying and no one was helping. "Hey!" Ben called out to the crowd. "Someone call medical." A Zephyrian trader nearby shook his head. "That's the Kelhari princess. She's been disavowed. Station policy says no interference in political matters." "Political matters?" Ben knelt beside Zara, checking for a pulse at her throat. Her skin was cold, but he could feel a weak heartbeat. "She's dying." "Not our problem, human," a Vortak merchant said. "The princess made her choices. Now she pays the price." Ben looked up at the crowd of aliens standing in a perfect circle around the dying woman. Some looked uncomfortable, others indifferent, but none made any move to help. In that moment, something clicked in Ben's mind. He thought of his sister back on Earth, who had died in a hospital while insurance companies debated coverage. He thought of every time someone had walked past a person in need because helping was complicated. "You know what?" Ben said, scooping Zara into his arms. Her body was lighter than he expected, and she felt fragile like a bird with hollow bones. Sometimes the right choice is the simple one. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the human cargo hauler carried the alien princess away from them. Behind him, he heard the whispers starting. "Is he insane? The humans have no political sense. He'll bring trouble on all of us." Ben ignored them all. His ship was small, just 3 rooms and a cargo hold, but it had a medical kit and privacy. More importantly, it had something the princess hadn't found anywhere else on the station, someone willing to help without calculating the cost. He laid Zara on his own bunk and began examining her injuries with the basic medical training all cargo haulers learned by necessity. The scanner in his kit was simple, but it told him enough. Poison in her system, dehydration, multiple lacerations from her crash, and those wing injuries that made him wince just looking at them. Ben started with the basics. He cleaned her wounds with antiseptic and bandaged what he could. He set up an 4 line to get fluids into her system. It wasn't advanced alien medicine, but it was care, and sometimes care mattered as much as technology. As he worked, Zara's eyes fluttered open. They were large and dark, with a faint silver glow around the pupils. For a moment, she seemed confused, then frightened. "Where am I?" she asked, her voice weak but still carrying those musical tones. "My ship," Ben said, not looking up from the bandage he was applying to her arm. "The Steady Fortune. Not much to look at, but it's safe. You're human." It wasn't a question. Her species had dealt with humans before, but they were considered minor players in galactic politics. "Ben Torres, cargo hauler, at your service." He finally met her eyes. "And your Princess Zara of the Kelhuri Empire, currently in a lot of trouble. Why did you help me? Your government has no treaties with mine. You have nothing to gain and much to lose." Ben sat back in the small chair beside his bunk. "Lady, I don't know much about galactic politics, but I know what's right. And leaving someone to die on the floor because it's politically convenient isn't right." Zara studied his face for a long moment. In her 28 years of life, most as a royal of one of the galaxy's major powers, she had never met someone who helped for such a simple reason. There was always an agenda, always a calculation, always a price to pay later. "The poison will kill me within 2 days," she said quietly. "Only Kelhuri medical technology can neutralize it. You cannot save me, Ben Torres. You can only die beside me when my enemies come." "Maybe," Ben said, checking the 4 line. "But you won't die alone. Sometimes that has to be enough." For the first time in days, Zara felt something other than despair. This strange human didn't understand what he was risking, didn't comprehend the forces that would align against him for this choice. But he had made it anyway, based on nothing more than basic decency. Outside the ship, word was already spreading through the station's information networks. The human in Bay 12 was harboring the disavowed Kelhuri princess. Some called it stupidity. Others called it a death wish. A few wondered if the humans had some secret agenda. In the cantinas and trading posts, bets were quietly being made about how long the human would last before abandoning the princess or being eliminated by her enemies. The smart money said less than 12 hours. But in the small medical bay of the Steady Fortune, Ben Torres continued his simple work of keeping another being alive, unaware that his choice would soon draw the attention of assassins, bounty hunters, and political forces that spanned the galaxy. As night fell on Nexus Prime, Zara found herself in the strange position of feeling hope for the first time since her ship had been sabotaged. The human sat in the corner, reading something on a data pad, occasionally glancing over to check on her condition. He had given her his own bunk and was planning to sleep in the cargo hold. When she had protested, he had simply said, "You're hurt worse than I am." "Ben Torres," she said softly. "Yes, Your Highness." "Just Zara, please. I am no longer a princess. My own people have made that clear." Ben set down his data pad and looked at her seriously. "Being a princess isn't about what other people say you are. It's about who you choose to be. And from what I've seen, you're still acting like royalty, just without the crown. How can you say that? You know nothing about me. I know you haven't asked me to contact your enemies and make a deal to save yourself. I know you tried to leave the station rather than bring trouble to others. I know you're more worried about my safety than your own." Ben shrugged. "That sounds like a princess to me." Zara closed her eyes, feeling tears she had been holding back for days. "My brother wants me dead. Someone on the council sold me to the Andromedans. Half my own military would celebrate my death. What kind of princess inspires such hatred?" "The kind who was probably trying to make peace instead of war," Ben guessed. "The kind who threaten people who profit from conflict." His words hit close to the truth. Zara had been pushing for the peace talks over the objections of the military-industrial complex on both sides. Too many people made too much money from the endless border conflicts between her people and the Andromedans. You're very wise for a cargo hauler, she said. I've seen enough of the galaxy to know that the people in charge often aren't the ones who should be. Ben smiled. Get some sleep, Zara. Tomorrow's going to be interesting. As the princess finally allowed herself to rest, Ben began making preparations. He sent encrypted messages to other human traders and workers on the station. He checked his ship's defensive systems and plotted potential escape routes. He wasn't naive about what was coming. By helping Princess Zara, he had made himself a target of forces far beyond his understanding. But Ben Torres had made his choice, and he would stand by it, whatever the cost. In the darkness of space around Nexus Prime, ships were already changing course, drawn by news of the abandoned princess and her unlikely protector. The galaxy's attention was turning to one small cargo ship and the human who had decided that sometimes doing the right thing mattered more than staying safe. The real test was about to begin. The first assassin came at dawn. Ben woke to the soft chime of his ship's security system detecting an unauthorized boarding attempt. He rolled quietly from his makeshift bed in the cargo hold and checked the monitors. A figure in dark clothing was cutting through the outer airlock with professional precision. Moving silently to his bunk, Ben gently shook Zara awake. Her condition had improved slightly overnight, but she was still weak from the poison coursing through her system. "We have company," he whispered. Zara's eyes snapped open, instantly alert despite her weakened state. "How many?" "One that I can see. Probably more outside." Ben helped her to a sitting position. "Can you move?" "I can try." Zara gritted her teeth as she stood, her damaged wings sending spikes of pain through her shoulders. "This person, they're here for me." "Yeah, well, they'll have to go through me first." Ben activated the ship's internal security lockdown, sealing the inner compartments. It wouldn't stop a professional for long, but it would buy time. He grabbed the plasma cutter from his toolkit and positioned himself between the door and Zara. The inner door hissed as someone began cutting through it from the other side. Sparks flew as the torch worked its way around the frame. Ben's heart pounded, but his hands remained steady. He thought of his father, who had taught him that some fights were worth having even when you couldn't win. The door fell inward with a crash. The assassin who stepped through was Kelhari, like Zara, but his bioluminescent markings were artificially darkened for stealth. He wore form-fitting armor and carried weapons that hummed with deadly energy. "Princess Zara," the assassin said, his voice cold and professional. "Your brother sends his regrets. Your death will be quick." "Her brother can send his regrets to me," Ben said, stepping forward with the plasma cutter raised. The assassin looked at Ben with something like amusement. "Human, you are brave but foolish. Step aside and I will allow you to live." "Counter offer," Ben replied. "You leave now and I won't have to hurt you." The assassin moved with inhuman speed, but Ben had spent years working in zero gravity and had reflexes sharpened by a lifetime of emergency repairs. As the energy blade swept toward his chest, he dropped low and swept the assassin's legs with his own. The alien's superior agility worked against him in the confined space as he crashed into the bulkhead. Ben brought the plasma cutter up, its beam passing inches from the assassin's throat. "Stay down." Behind him, Zara had managed to activate the ship's communication system. "This is Princess Zara of Kelhari to any human vessels in the area. I am under attack and request assistance." The response came faster than either of them expected. "This is Captain Lisa Chen of the freighter, New Horizon." "Ben Torres, is that you in there?" Ben grinned despite the situation. Lisa was an old friend from his early cargo hauling days. "Lisa, good to hear your voice. I'm in a bit of a situation here." "So I gathered." "Hold tight, we're coming." The assassin on the floor activated something on his wrist, and Ben heard the distant sound of ships approaching. "Your friend will not be enough," the assassin said. "My employer has sent a full squadron." "Maybe," Ben said, keeping the plasma cutter steady. "But humans don't usually travel alone." Over the next few minutes, Ben's communication system came alive with voices he recognized. Tom Walsh from the mining vessel, Deep Strike. Maria Santos from the transport ship, Star Runner. Rick Coleman from the maintenance craft, Steady Hand. One by one, the human workers and traders on Nexus Prime checked in. Ben, what's your status? Came Lisa's voice. One assassin secured, but there are ships approaching. Looks like a full tactical team. Copy that. All human vessels, this is Chen. We have a situation in Bay 12. Recommend we form a defensive perimeter. Through his external cameras, Ben watched as human ships began moving toward his position. They weren't military vessels, just working ships operated by ordinary people who made their living hauling cargo and mining asteroids. But they moved with purpose, arranging themselves in a protective formation around the steady fortune. Tom Walsh's gravelly voice came through the comm. Ben, I've got 4 Kelhari military ships approaching fast. They're broadcasting surrender demands. Tell them I'm not surrendering, Ben replied. Zara hasn't done anything wrong. Actually, came a new voice, crisp and authoritative, I'll tell them myself. Ben looked at Zara in surprise. Despite her injuries, she had managed to access the ship's main communication array. When she spoke, her voice carried the unmistakable tone of royal command. This is Princess Zara of the Kelhari Empire to the approaching military vessels. You will halt your advance and withdraw immediately. I am under the protection of human allies, and any attack on them will be considered an act of war against Earth. A long silence followed. Then a cold voice responded. Princess, you have been disavowed by the Council. You have no authority to invoke protective treaties. The Council does not speak for the throne, Zara replied firmly. And the throne does not abandon its allies. Withdraw, or face the consequences. Ben stared at her. Zara, what are you doing? Your own government abandoned you. My government, Zara said, her bioluminescent markings growing brighter with determination, consists of more than just the Council. And right now, it consists of everyone in this small fleet who chose to stand with me when my own people would not. The standoff stretched for tense minutes. The Kelhari ships held position just outside the station's defensive range while the human vessels maintained their protective formation. Ben could see more ships arriving in the distance, but he couldn't tell whose side they were on. Then Maria Santos's excited voice crackled through the comm. Ben, you need to see this. We've got Kelhari ships approaching, but they're flying royal family colors, not military. On the screen, Ben watched as 3 sleek vessels moved into position between the human ships and the military squadron. These ships were beautiful, decorated with the flowing script and crystal formations that marked them as belonging to the Kelhari royal house. This is Prince Kale of Kelhari, came a voice that sounded remarkably like Zara's. The military vessels will withdraw immediately. My sister is under my personal protection. Zara gasped. Kale. But I thought you were with them. Sister, I have been searching for you since word of your disappearance reached me. The Council acted without royal consent. Father is very angry. Ben felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. So we're not about to be blown up by your brother? No, Zara smiled for the first time since he'd known her. Kale was always the good one. But their relief was short-lived. The assassin Ben had been guarding suddenly spoke up. Prince Kale, you arrived too late. The contract has been fulfilled. What contract? Ben demanded. The assassin smiled coldly. The poison your princess carries was not meant to kill her immediately. It was meant to weaken her until this moment. Now that she has used her royal voice to command the military, the final component activates. Zara suddenly doubled over, her bioluminescent markings flickering wildly. The poison that had been slowly weakening her was now attacking her nervous system directly, triggered by the stress of using her royal authority. What did you do to her? Ben dropped beside Zara as she collapsed. A traditional Kelhari poison, the assassin said with satisfaction. It responds to the bioelectric patterns generated when a royal exercises command authority. The more she acted like a princess, the faster it would kill her. Ben looked at the assassin with fury, then back at Zara, who was convulsing on the floor of his ship. Her brother's voice came through the comm, frantic with worry. "Zara, what's happening? Your life signs are spiking." "Poison," Ben managed to say. "He says it was triggered when she used her royal voice. Get her to my ship immediately. We have the medical facilities to treat her." But even as Prince Kale spoke, Ben could see that time was running out. Zara's breathing was becoming labored, and her bioluminescent markings were fading fast. The nearest Calvary ship was still several minutes away, even at maximum speed. "There has to be something," Ben said, more to himself than anyone else. He looked at his basic medical kit, then at the assassin, then back at Zara. An idea began to form in his mind, desperate and probably impossible, but better than watching her die. "Lisa," he called out on the comm, "I need you to patch me through to Dr. Vex on the station. Emergency medical consultation." "Ben, what are you thinking?" came Lisa's worried voice. "Something stupid, probably." Ben was already pulling out his medical scanner and emergency drugs. "But I've got an idea." Dr. Vex's voice came through the comm within seconds. "Mr. Torres, what is the princess's current condition?" Ben quickly described what he was seeing. The Zephyrian doctor's response was grim. "The poison is attacking her nervous system directly. Without Calvary medical technology, there is nothing you can do to neutralize it." "What if I don't try to neutralize it?" Ben asked. "What if I try to interrupt it?" "I don't understand." Ben was already preparing a dose of human-manufactured neural inhibitor, a drug used to treat seizures in humans. "The poison works by overstimulating her nervous system, right? What if I chemically slow down her entire nervous system, force it into a state where the poison can't complete its attack pattern?" "That's incredibly dangerous," Dr. Vex said. "The dosage calculations alone, the drug interaction could kill her faster than the poison." "Doc, she's dying anyway. Will it work or not?" A pause. "Theoretically, yes. If you could slow her nervous system to exactly the right level, the poison would lose its target. But the margin for error is tiny, and I cannot guide you through the calculations from here." Ben looked at the assassin, who was watching with interest. You know how this poison works. Why would I help you?" "Because," Ben said, preparing the neural inhibitor, "if she dies, Prince Kale is going to blame you. And from what I've heard, he's not as forgiving as his sister." The assassin considered this. "The poison requires neural activity above a certain threshold to complete its cycle. If you could reduce her brain activity to below that level." "For how long?" 3 minutes. Maybe 4. Ben looked at the dose in his hand. It was a huge risk. Too much and Zara would slip into a coma she might never wake from. Too little and the poison would continue its work. But as he watched her convulsions growing worse, he realized it was the only chance she had. "Zara," he said, kneeling beside her. "I need you to trust me one more time." Her eyes met his, pain-filled but still aware. "Do it," she whispered. Ben administered the neural inhibitor and watched Zara's bioluminescent markings fade to almost nothing. Her breathing slowed, her heartbeat dropped, and for a terrifying moment he thought he had killed her. Then Dr. Vex's voice came through the comm. "Her vital signs are stabilizing at the target level. You did it, Mr. Torres. Now we wait." The next 4 minutes felt like hours. Ben monitored Zara's vital signs while her brother's ship raced toward them. The assassin remained silent, perhaps recognizing that his own fate now depended on the princess's survival. Finally, as Prince Kale's ship docked with the station, Ben administered a stimulant to bring Zara's nervous system back to normal levels. Her bioluminescent markings flickered back to life, and her eyes opened. "Ben," she said weakly. "Right here, princess." Your brother's here to take you home. As cavalry medical teams rushed aboard to complete Zara's treatment, Ben found himself pushed to the background of the activity. The assassin was taken into custody, and the military ships that had threatened them were recalled to face the anger of the cavalry emperor himself. But before the medical teams took her away, Zara grabbed Ben's hand. "What you did today," she said, "it was more than saving my life. You showed me what honor really means." In cavalry tradition, when someone saves a royal life at risk to their own, they become shield brother to that royal. "Will you accept this bond, Ben Torres?" Ben looked around at the crowd of humans and aliens watching them. "What does it mean?" "It means you and your people are under my personal protection for as long as I live. It means the Cavalry Empire will consider an attack on human traitors an attack on the royal family itself. It means we are family now, chosen rather than born." Ben smiled. "Lady, after everything we've been through, I'd be honored." 3 months later, Ben Torres found himself in the throne room of the Cavalry Empire, standing beside Princess Zara as she addressed the Galactic Council. The peace talks that had been interrupted by her assassination attempt were finally taking place, but with a much different dynamic than anyone had expected. "The humans have shown us something we had forgotten," Zara said to the assembled delegates. "They reminded us that sometimes the right choice is also the simple choice. They stood with me not because they calculated some advantage, but because abandoning someone in need was unthinkable to them." The Andromedan delegate shifted uncomfortably. "Princess, surely you're not suggesting that galactic politics should be conducted based on sentiment rather than rational interest?" "I'm suggesting," Zara replied, "that a galaxy where rational interest allows us to watch each other die might not be worth preserving." Ben watched from his place of honor beside the throne as Zara announced the new cavalry position. Trade preferences for species that demonstrated humanitarian values. Defense agreements that prioritized protecting the weak over advancing the strong. A fundamental shift in how the Empire approached galactic relations. The other delegates were stunned. Several asked for recess to consult with their governments. But Ben noticed that a few were nodding in agreement, as if Zara had given voice to something they had been thinking but hadn't dared to say. Later, as the formal sessions ended, Ben found himself on a balcony overlooking the cavalry capital city. The crystalline spires caught the light of 3 suns and scattered it in patterns that reminded him of Zara's wings before they had been shattered. "Regrets?" Zara asked, joining him at the railing. Her wings had been reconstructed by cavalry medical technology, but she had chosen to have them made stronger rather than more beautiful. "You've gone from unknown cargo hauler to shield brother of an imperial princess. Your life will never be simple again." Ben thought about his small ship, now docked in the royal spaceport and upgraded with the best technology the Empire could provide. He thought about his fellow human traders, who were now finding doors open throughout cavalry space. He thought about the changes rippling through galactic politics because one woman had stood up for what was right and one man had chosen to stand beside her. "No regrets," he said finally. "Sometimes the best things in life come from the choices that scare you the most." Zara smiled, her bioluminescent markings bright with contentment. "My father says the humans have taught us that strength isn't about standing above others. It's about who you choose to stand beside." As they watched the sun set over the crystal city, Ben reflected on how much had changed since that moment when he had seen an abandoned princess bleeding on the floor of a space station. He had thought he was just helping one person in need. Instead, he had helped change the way an entire galaxy thought about honor, loyalty, and the courage to do what's right. The human cargo hauler and the alien princess had become something neither had expected: family, chosen in crisis and forged in trust. And their partnership had shown the galaxy that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe wasn't technology or politics or military might. Sometimes it was simply the decision to stand beside someone when no one else would. In the years that followed, historians would mark this period as the beginning of a new age in galactic relations, when the human principle of doing what's right began to influence species across the stars. But for Ben Torres and Princess Zara, it would always be remembered more simply, as the day they chose each other as family, and in doing so, chose to make the galaxy a better place.